Hello guys, it is Gate of Theories here, and today we are finally reviewing all of My Mum, Tracy Beaker. If you're a fan of this channel, you will know we reviewed every single episode individually, and those reviews basically were my initial reaction right off the bat from seeing that certain episode. And if you want to see them, make sure that you click the card right up here, and it will take you to the playlist. However, it's been a few days now to basically process what I watched, and my opinion on the show has kind of changed slightly. I decided to rewatch it again after a few days, so I knew what I was expecting, and this time I decided to watch the whole movie instead of each individual episode to see how the viewing experience might differ. And now I have a great understanding as to how I personally see this show. So I thought today it's time to review the movie of My Mum, Tracy Beaker, and see whether for once and for all, this show, movie, or whatever it is, reaches up to the high standards of Tracy Beaker, or does it fall into the trap of some of the recent seasons of The Dumping Ground. And if you've seen some of those recent seasons, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And guys, I currently have a brand new My Mum Tracy Beaker theory in the works right now. And guys, it is pretty epic. So if you want to see that, make sure that you like this video. And if this video gets to 50 likes, I will release it. And guys, you're going to want to see this because it's an awesome theory. But before we go any further, please make sure that you click that red subscribe button down below and have your notifications turned on so that you get notified every time I make a brand new Tracy Beaker video. Before we go any further, I just want to mention that this video might be slightly long, so I am going to put some video chapters down below just so that you can go to the certain point of the review if you want to check out my opinions on a certain thing. And I should also point out that I did see the movie second, however, my sister saw the movie first and then watched it again as 3 separate episodes, so I've kind of got 2 different viewpoints of first viewings to go off in this review. One where a first person watched the 3 episodes, and then one where the first person watched the movie first, as watching it as a movie rather than 3 episodes can change things slightly. And there will be spoilers, of course, so if you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Go and watch it before the comment section of this video spoils it for you, and it is worth it, and then come back here because you will really enjoy it. So firstly, let's just kick off with, did I enjoy it? Because there's no point in doing this review if I didn't enjoy it or absolutely hated it. You'll be pleased to know I did really enjoy it, watching it both times in fact. Definitely more the first time because it was something brand new, but the second time was good too, and I would honestly recommend it to any Tracy Beaker fan because it's now basically canon. However, even though I thought it was amazing, I still have some issues with it, and from looking online, it looks like some people also have similar issues to the same ones I did. But anyway, let's talk first about the main character herself, Tracy Beaker, played by the brilliant Dani Harmer. And honestly, it's as if she's never left the part. This feels like what Tracy Beaker would be like if she was a mum, and that's basically what it needed to do. There's a few things here and there that I wouldn't have expected Tracy to do, but everything Dani Harmer brings back to the part and all the new mum experiences she brings works so well. And don't worry, there is still a lot of the angry, fierce and courageous Tracy Beaker inside of this version that we all have grown to know and love. Literally, right off the bat, when you see Tracy storming into the classroom when Jess has been in trouble, you know that Tracy Beaker is back. And honestly, it is just so awesome and exciting to see this. It brought back so much nostalgia, and if you love the original story of Tracy Beaker, I'm going to say you have to watch this, as Tracy is still the same, yet just a little different. Dani Harmer not only plays the mum and fierce of Tracy vibes well, but in the third act she does amazingly at playing Tracy Beaker depressed. We've seen it in all shows before, more so in Tracy Beaker Returns, but here it works so well. But I'll get more into that later. So the basic premise of the show is that Tracy has a daughter, Jess, and she basically wants to make sure that Jess has the best life ever and not the life she grew up with in care. This makes Tracy kind of over-obsessed with Jess and basically is trying to defend her and get her into the best places so she has the most perfect life. However, that isn't necessarily the best thing for Jess. Speaking of Jess, the creation of this character I think is just absolutely perfect. It's the exact opposite of Tracy Beaker, yet still got that little hint of a Beaker girl inside of her, and the actress who plays Jess, Emma Davies, plays the daughter of Tracy Beaker in the way I'd believe her daughter to be. Jess is quiet and sometimes embarrassed by Tracy's forcing nature, however she can be really feisty when she needs to be, and it's honestly the perfect duo. This creates some great chemistry between the two characters, and Danny and Emma bounce off each other so well throughout the movie, and to be honest, it just works so well. Next we have Cam. She is kind of underused at first, and if you're watching it episode by episode like how I did originally, in the first episode, she's basically barely used, which is a shame. However, if you're watching it as a movie, Lisa Coleman is just great in this. Just the presence of Cam being back is awesome, and her happy ending at the end is brilliant, but we'll come on to that later. Before we move on to the next big character, Sean, let's talk about some of these side characters. Miss Oliver is fine, I guess, like she does what she needs to do and is there for Cam, but she doesn't really stand out to me. A minor role who does stand out to me, however, is Sean's housekeeper, Rosealie, who is just a great minor little addition, and she basically does nothing apart from this really funny trait, which I absolutely love. Rosalie's honest nature about Jess's dark dress, Sean messing up with Tracy, and more that she says throughout the movie is just so hilarious and adds some comedy, especially in some of those more depressing moments. I just find it so funny. The final sub-character is Tyrone. He's a great addition in my personal opinion, although I just feel like we should have had more time with him, unfortunately. Tyrone and Jess's chemistry is good, however, they go from enemies to friends just too quick in my opinion. Considering they hated each other at the beginning, they then suddenly really like each other, and that's about it. There's like no real reason as to why suddenly they began liking each other. Like, Jess goes from almost attacking Tyrone in the playground to suddenly Jess and Tracy loving him and giving him hugs and inviting him to come to their big expensive mansion. Like, why? But either way, once they are friends, their development is great all the way up to the end of the film. And I really do hope that he returns in season 2. I also really love his backstory, as it's the only part of the film that properly looks at disadvantaged kids like the ones we see in the dumping ground. However, it only lasts about 3 minutes maybe, and that's about it, which is a real shame. I get it's about Tracy and her daughter, but there should have been a bigger focus on Tyrone and his troubles, else there wasn't really any point in adding in Tyrone's backstory at all if you weren't going to go more into it. I feel like it was only added in to basically have the disadvantaged kid aspect into the film that we've got so used to, that the show focuses on when it's not just dealing with Tracy Beaker herself. Although, speaking of Tyrone, the sets and scenery for this show is just brilliant, considering the film was filmed in lockdown. I love Tracy and Jess's flat design, and it feels really like a Beaker home, and the huge contrast between the flat estate to Sean Godfrey's mansion is such a clever design. I love it, and they did it really well with the settings. Next we have Sean Godfrey himself. I think the actor's really great at the part he plays, however, I do feel, especially after watching it a second time, that the character is just very plain and kind of boring at times. Like, he might be meant to be like that, but, like, once you take away the fact that he's a famous footballer with money, he doesn't really seem to be an interesting character, apart from he can get a bit angry at times. The actor does really well at playing him angry and selfish at times, but he doesn't really interest me much in this movie. I think one of the reasons is not actually any of the actor's faults, it's purely the reasoning as to why Jess hates Sean, and it's just never really explained, and I think that sort of damages the character, because it is never explained, especially at the beginning. Apart from the fact that it's separating Tracy from Jess, that's about the only reason why we've got for Jess hating this character. Like, it is never truly explained why she instantly hates Sean, and all we get is that Sean talks too much about football and takes them out, and that was about it. I think some more reasoning as to why she hates Sean would have been better, because we get Jess wants to look out for Tracy, and maybe she just wants it to be the two of them, but it's never made clear. And the movie focuses mainly on the fact that Jess hates Sean, and it basically stops any other sort of character traits coming out from Sean, and it isn't helped by the fact that we just really do not know why Jess doesn't like this character. And that is one of the main problems with this show, slash movie, or whatever you want to call it. The fact is that it needs more time. It is very quick. Personally, I feel like it's extremely quick if you watch it episode by episode compared to the movie, but I asked my sister who watched the movie first, and she said it was really quick as well. And what I mean by this is, the show is trying to cram in too much into a short space of time. To be fair, it is trying to copy the book, which is over 400 pages. Like, it needs way more episodes and just more time to breathe. Unfortunately, the biggest victim of this is Sean and Tracy's relationship, and I found this with both times viewing, and that their relationship is just way too rushed. We go to Tracy reuniting with Sean at the gym for her kickboxing lessons, which, on a side note, I don't really like the idea of Tracy doing kickboxing, as I never thought her anger is so bad that she needs lessons on it, especially when she's an adult, but anyway, that's a whole other thing. But they reunite at this gym, and then 1 minute later, they're on a date, and there's a tiny bit where it might look like they're not going to get together, and then suddenly they've been dating for a while, and we haven't seen any of this. Instead, they rely on one line from Jess's narration. I think it's fine Jess narrates, as it's from her perspective, as if she's reading the book herself, but this film relies too much on all of the big moments that they don't have enough time for just Jess to make up for by narrating one line of it. Then Tracy and Sean are suddenly looking at Sean's house, suddenly they have the dog Alfie, suddenly they're eating together and moving in together, they have a fight at dinner, and then Sean says he loves Tracy, and then, whoa, they're engaged. Like, what? All of this development between Sean and Tracy reuniting and then suddenly being engaged is in the space of maybe like 10 minutes this all happens in. We've literally only just met this guy, and right now it looks like they've been on one date. Like, it makes the character of Sean look kind of creepy. What would have been much better is to even have like some sort of montage of them on different dates, even simple pictures of them on dates, just to clear up the fact that they have been dating for a while before they decide to move in together. Because it is the end of episode 1 where Sean suddenly proposes. I admit the second time watching it, when you know what to expect, you get a better understanding of time passing, but it is still very, very quick. And it happens with lots of things in the film, such as Cam and Miss Oliver's relationship, Jess and Tyrone turning from enemies to friends, and a lot more. I get they were filming in the pandemic and had limited time, but even a single extra episode where it shows Sean and Tracy going on dates might have been better, but just jumping straight into it just didn't work for me. I'm very surprised they didn't even go for the traditional 6-episode series that lots of British shows do. But I guess they wanted to fit it all into a movie, which is fine, but it just makes all of this character development just way too rushed. But I do have to say, later on, especially in the 3rd episode, they focus in on moments instead of rushing, and it's all worth it, and it gives those moments time to breathe, and it creates lots and lots of emotional scenes, but more on that later. Since we were talking about Sean, let's move on to the cliffhangers. Now, if you're going to watch this either as a movie or in a TV show's form, this point is really important. And let me tell you, if you like a good cliffhanger, like Lily falling off the roof, like the DG being closed, then you want to watch it episode by episode and not a movie, because the movie absolutely sucks at the big moments. Let's take the first cliffhanger as an example. At the end of episode 1, where Sean proposes unexpectedly to Tracy, if you're watching it in episodes, you can feel the rising tension of the scene, and you really don't know what Tracy is about to choose. The music is so tense, and the reactions from all 3 characters are just so brilliant. Then it ends with the awesome, amazing remix music of the original theme, which, by the way, is just awesome, and brought back so much nostalgia to me. Literally, you can go and watch my initial reaction to this. I was loving it, and so excited by this cliffhanger, and it just makes you so excited for episode 2. However, if you're watching this as a movie, it doesn't even stop. It has Jess's narration, the tense music, and then it just carries on, and the moment is completely ruined by Tracy talking. Like, there is no tension whatsoever. So if you love cliffhangers, watch the episodes, because all of the other cliffhangers, including Justine with Sean, is completely ruined by the movie, because the movie just carries on as if it was nothing. Like, it literally builds up to nothing, whereas the episodes make it special. But either way, this scene did give us something in the movie, if not a cliffhanger, and that is the iconic Cadillac car. Yes! Finally, Tracy has it again since that first movie. I absolutely love how they brought this back, and all of the other little references they gave us, such as the hay fever reference, Cam and Tracy writing their own books, every time Tracy got sent back to the DG, Justine stealing Tracy's best friend Louise and making her eat worms, the dumping ground shop at the end. It's just all brilliant fan service for all the fans of every show, and I love how they acknowledge them. It makes it feel like it is a Tracy Beaker viewing. Speaking of that, let's of course talk about the other returning characters. Firstly, Carly Beaker. Now, they didn't need to bring back Carly whatsoever. She didn't play a big part in the original show, and in the book she barely does anything. But they brought her back anyway, and it is awesome. Like, I'm not complaining. This movie does so well at pleasing its old fans, even if Carly just didn't need to be there whatsoever, and this is a great example of this. Not to mention, the way the other characters act around Carly is just priceless. I firstly just love how the scene begins with Tracy waiting for Carly by looking out of a window, referencing all those times in the original show where she'd wait for her mum by looking out the window. Just the attention to detail is so amazing. Not to mention how the other characters react around her is just incredible. Cam's positive attitude to Carly coming changes as soon as Carly comes in, and Cam completely changes. It's just brilliant. Lisa Coleman plays a great, almost jealous version, and Carly reacts exactly as we'd expect. And the slow rising tension and awkwardness of this scene between Cam and Carly is great, so much so that Cam and Carly basically begin fighting for Tracy. But the thing that makes this return extra special for the movie is Tracy finally getting to attack Carly and get her redemption after all these years. And if you've seen the original movie of Me, you'd know why that is so important. Carly's redemption later when she returns in the 3rd episode is also great. Finally, they've resolved things and it was really needed. Of course, we also have Peter returning. Like, it's another case of he's in the book and that's why they added him, because Peter really didn't need to be there whatsoever. He does not add anything to the story. Like, he literally hasn't been mentioned since series 1 of the story of Tracy Beaker, and he's played here by a completely different actor, but it's another character, and the more the merrier. So I'm happy he's there, I guess. Like, Mike or Liam or anyone else would have been really good, but you know, Peter's fine. He's another character. But of course, the big return is Justine Littlewood herself, and it is absolutely awesome. Like, just everything we want. If you're a fan of Justine and Tracy before, you will love this. Justine's entrance is great. The tension and dread you can feel when you see her coat, and literally everyone in the audience knows who it is. And you can just see Tracy clueless and then look so shocked when she sees it's Justine. It's just so priceless. And the awkwardness and tension of the scene is just exactly right, with Justine making slight comments to Jess. But what's really great about this scene is that it doesn't just turn into a Tracy and Justine fight. Instead, they chat just as friends after the awkwardness begins to clear, reminiscing of past episodes, which is great for fans and makes sense because the two of them did make up at the end of the story of Tracy Beaker and when she returned in Tracy Beaker Returns, so they shouldn't need to fight. The scene is short but effective and great. However, it is kind of let down when she returns again in the film. Now, when she returns into the cafe, I honestly just love how Tracy just cannot be asked for any of it, and she basically just gives up on Justine, which I find hilarious. And finally, we get another Tracy versus Justine physical fight, which we've always wanted, and it's always so funny. But where it just breaks is when they decide to add such a cringy moment into this. They add a giant versus battle sign on the screen, and it's like, why? Like, I get it's for kids, but it came across so cringy. And if they wanted animation, why didn't they just use the classic and iconic animations that they've been using for ages? That is a serious letdown for me of this movie. Every single Tracy Beaker show, the story of Tracy Beaker Returns, The Dumping Ground, even the original movie used Nick Sharratt's illustrations as animations. Like, they're just practically a tradition now. However, there isn't even one in here. Like, what? This place would have been a perfect place for an animation instead of a cringy versus sign. And it's not like they weren't prepared for any. The book is full of illustrations of characters such as Godfrey and Jess Beaker. Like, where are these animations that we want? But anyway, the basic plot of the story is decent enough for the plot of Tracy Beaker to go on, and the movie does especially well at playing out the emotion and depression when the climax happens and it is revealed Sean is cheating. It does so well at it simply because it isn't rushed like the other scenes I talked about before, but instead, this time it takes its time. Danny Harmer plays depression extremely well. We've seen this before in the story of Tracy Beaker and Tracy Beaker Returns. Here, she does it brilliantly as well. Especially when she first finds out that Sean has cheated on her, the anger and the terror you can see, and then the crying of Jess is played so well. Tracy does acts such as throwing a phone at the wall and slamming the wall and basically getting so angry and depressed, and you can see Jess maybe even terrified of what is about to happen. It's done so perfectly, and once it is settled, I love how there's long, awkward moments of Jess just trying to help her mum, but she can't. Like when she takes out Alfie to help, and literally Tracy just doesn't care anymore. She's just given up with life. And the sad story of Tracy Beaker theme song that plays in the background brings back so much nostalgia and makes the depression just seem so real and so more emotional. And it carries on with Alfie having to leave and Tracy basically just becoming so fed up with life that she moves into Cam's. And when she says that being with Sean made her feel like Tracy Beaker, the kid Tracy Beaker, I just got so many chills and so much nostalgia to the original story of Tracy Beaker that having to see our main character like this just hits so much harder. I do just love how the serious moments of this film are played out well, and a great contrast to the more light-hearted moments like the cardboard den, which you could imagine young Tracy Beaker creating. This also just shows how similar Jess is to her mum, thinking of awesome Tracy plans to cheer up Tracy Beaker. But then, I think the ending is the most powerful moment. Not letting Sean and Tracy end up together was a very wise choice and a great message for kids, because all Tracy needed was Jess, not a boyfriend, and it further strengthens the bond between Tracy and Jess, which is just great to see. Having it be Cam's wedding is a really nice shock and surprise and quite important, and they finally made Cam gay in the show. It was always planned for the character, but only now implemented, which I think is very important for any young LGBTQ+ kids who will be watching this show, as there has been a lack of representation in this franchise overall, with only Elektra being the main currently out one. The dance at the wedding is also awesome and brings back so much nostalgia, where they dance to the original theme tune. However, what I'm really glad about is that they didn't end at the wedding. I'm so glad that they ended with only Jess and Tracy together, and that's what this film has all been about, the mother and daughter relationship. And this part, unlike the rest of the film, is slow, calm, and just such a happy ending. I love the reference to the dumping ground at the end, and it's making me hopeful that one day we might get a crossover, but when Tracy says they'll come back to it, it just shows overall that she has left the dumping ground, and it's some great development to this long-standing character. I do just love the beach scene at the end as well, where it shows many shots of Tracy and Jess together, and it kind of just makes you really emotional. And the slow shot of them running up the beach is a great ending to show the Beaker girls are together, and that's all they'll ever need. And this is all made extra special by Jess's end narration, who says, "The story of Tracy Beaker and Sean Godfrey didn't get its happy ending, but the story of the Beaker girls was just beginning." Like, what an amazing and emotional last line. And of course, the to be continued bit was just a huge shock and an incredible surprise. We'll have to wait and see what this leads to, but I bet it'll be something exciting. And what I love probably most of all is once that to be continued happens, you see the epic remix of the original theme song as the credits are on. Like, the amount of nostalgia this film brings back is just amazing. So, is My Mom Tracy Beaker a brilliant movie, or does it fall into the trap of what the current dumping ground has been doing? Well, I'd say the movie just excels in nostalgia, fan service, and developing the character of Tracy Beaker. If you are a fan of the original story of Tracy Beaker and the character herself, or if you've actually read the book, you should definitely watch this. It is really good and just brilliant. However, if you watch Tracy Beaker not just for the character, but more for the serious look at kids' lives and care, then I'd unfortunately say this isn't for you. It excels brilliantly at showing more of Tracy Beaker, but apart from the depression we see her in after Sean cheats on her, there isn't many serious moments in it, and they had a chance with Tyrone but just wasted it. Unfortunately, if you love Tracy Beaker Returns and some of the episodes of The Dumping Ground with the more serious look at kids' lives, then this doesn't really have much of it in it. And another annoying thing is the replay factor of this isn't really the best. Personally, on my second viewing, it makes the speedy bits more slower, which is good so you understand more. However, the excitement and wonder you get when first viewing it just isn't the same. Unlike in Tracy Beaker Returns for me personally, which I can watch over and over and always find exciting stuff to it, this show I don't think is going to be something I'm going to be watching on repeat a lot. As for the question of whether you should watch it as a movie or a 3-part series, I'd go for the episode by episode, as the cliffhangers are just more exciting. But there you have it. What did you think of my mum, Tracy Beaker, and what was your favourite moment? Let us know down below in the comments. Personally, I did really like this film. However, I just don't think it hits up to the high standards of Tracy Beaker Returns. But you know, what did you guys think? If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you smash the like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And as always, we've been here at Gate of Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.